Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UTM Office of the Registrar's New Student Advising. For those of you who will be joining us this fall, welcome. Now, before we start our presentation, I wish to acknowledge the traditional land. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Now, before we start, I wanted to let everyone know that this presentation is recorded. So if you need to go back to it in the future to access it, you can go ahead and look for that. It will be recorded. And as well, throughout the presentation, if you have questions, feel free to use the chat to post those questions, as we will be reviewing them and answering them at the end of this presentation. So let's get started. So first, about fees and payment options. So as of now, some of you probably have added courses on Acorn, and so you would have seen your Acorn invoice. So in terms of the types of tuition fees, we have for most or all of first-year students and most upper-year students, with the exception to those in the deregulated program, your tuition fees will be per course on a per course fee basis, and your tuition fees will increase with each course you enroll in. So here I have in the posting here, we have table 1 from the fee schedule for the upcoming school year. As you can see, as you increase from 0.5 credits, a 1/2 credit course, as you increase, your fees will increase along with that. Now, in terms of program fees, students in certain deregulated programs will be charged a flat rate in their upper years. This rate is dependent on enrolling in 4.0 credits or more, or for some, for the commerce students, 3.0 credits. Now, these on the right-hand side are the deregulated programs at the University of Toronto Mississauga campus. And again, it would pertain mostly to upper year students. So for those of you who are joining us first time, coming directly from high school or first year with us, your fees will be per course fees. So these program fees will only be effective once you get into the deregulated program in the upper year. So here the fees, as you can see, are higher than your regular fees. And here's an example of the Commerce Specialist program. Here you have on the left is the program fee plus the incidentals, and that will give you the total amount. Now, for the management major specialists, it's also a deregulated program. The fee is slightly different. And so when you do get into the upper years, you can consider looking at these, and just to make sure that you know which credit course load that you will be incurring the program fees. Now, in addition to the course fees or program fees, you also will be paying incidental fees. These incidental fees vary for full-time and part-time students, and it is mandatory, and it's for student services, athletics, the Health and Counseling Center, and the UTM shuttle bus to St. George, and amongst other items as well. So these, like I mentioned, these fees are all mandatory, with the exception of the health and dental fee if you have alternate coverage. So for students, you might want to check with your family to see if they have coverage for you with their workplace. If they do have sufficient coverage, you can select to opt out of the health and dental fee, and that you can do via the UTM Student Union website. And please be mindful of the opt-out period. It is very short. So again, you can go into the University of Toronto, the Student Union website to look for more information about opting out. Here's the link at the bottom there. And so that's how you would opt out. And again, please be mindful of the deadlines for the opt-out period. Now, some of the students, depending on the courses that you're enrolled in, you will incur the ancillary fees as well. These fees are associated with your program of study and specific academic activities such as lab and or studio fees. These are mandatory, and the students are not able to opt out of these. Now, the registration status, if you log into your Acorn account, you will be able to see your registration status. So at any point in time, it would be, there could be 3: invited status, registered, and financially canceled. It's not yet applicable because we are still within that period where students can still attain that registration status. So for those of you that have already applied for financial aid or have a scholarship coming in, you are in fact, for those who have the financial aid, you are in fact able to go in and deferred your fees. Now, there can be issues. Sometimes students may encounter issues with the deferral. So I'll explain that a little bit more in just a minute. So if you have already submitted the fee deferral, your status would be registered on Acorn. So that's something that you would want to do before the deadline. So, and we will also go through the deadline a little bit later. Now, you actually need to be enrolled in at least one course, because if you do not have any approved courses and all of your courses are waitlisted, you will not be able to see your invoice because you're not yet in those courses. So it's very important that you try and get yourself into courses and be able to see your invoice before you can submit that fee deferral. Now, financially canceled, like I said, that status is not yet applicable as we are still within that time frame where students can still register. So when the time comes, financially canceled, scenario 1, you are enrolled in courses, but you missed the deadline to pay or defer your fees. So at that point in time, your next steps would be to follow the late registration process. Scenario 2 is where you are financially canceled because you are on academic suspension. So you'll need to check your U of T email for the official email from our office regarding the terms of your suspension. Now, your tuition invoice on Acorn, right now it's July 23rd. So if you've already selected courses and you have some approved courses in your enrollment cart or on Acorn, you would be able to see your invoice. It will be posted. And for those of you who still has an invited status, you will be able to see the minimum payment to defer that will be displayed at the bottom of your Acorn invoice. And again, having a registered status on Acorn will reserve your spot in the courses that you have chosen. And you're probably wondering how much do you need to pay by August the 12th. So again, it is on the screen. It's the minimum payment to register. That amount is stated there. Again, if you already have a registered status, I believe that this minimum payment display would have disappeared from your invoice. So you would need to look for it because you've already registered and you no longer need to make that minimum payment. Now, how to register? So you could either, based on that invoice, on your Acorn invoice, make that minimum payment to register, or you can submit a fee deferral. So let's have a look at those in more detail. In terms of payment options, you can make payment within Canada. If you're an international student, you can make international payments using Convera, or Flywire. Now, paying by credit card on Acorn, just keep in mind that there is a non-refundable 2.5% service fee, and which is charged by Moneris. So it's not paid to U of T. This fee is paid to Moneris for using their services. So I would encourage to use this as a last resort to pay by credit card, just because of this service fee, because it could be a big amount based on the amount of your payment. Now, fee deferral. A fee deferral allows eligible students to officially register for their studies by the registration deadline without having to make a fee payment at a later date. So just keep that in mind. It's to get you registered and not to avoid any payments in the future. So students are still responsible to pay for their fees on their Acorn invoice. Eligibility for the fee deferral: if you have applied for and are receiving OSAP or an out-of-province loan, or you are receiving a U of T scholarship, then you would be eligible for a fee deferral. So keep in mind, for students receiving the U of T scholarship, the value of your scholarship must be equal to or greater than your minimum amount to register. So as I mentioned previously, it was listed on your Acorn invoice. So the amount of the value of your scholarship has to be at least that minimum payment amount to register. Then you would be able to submit the fee deferral. If there is no option on Acorn to defer, you can visit the link below for more instructions. So there's the link right there. Just here's some more information about how the actual process is done when you're requesting a fee deferral on Acorn. So it's under the Finances tab on the left. So you can see the green right here. And that's where you would go and check off the box, and then you would submit that fee deferral. Now, registration deadlines for all students. Now, the Acorn invoice is now available. And so the minimum payment deadline is August the 12th. If you happen to make a minimum payment between August the 13th and 25, then you will need to submit a proof of payment. Now, just keep in mind that it does take about 2 to 3 business days for your payment to be reflected on Acorn. So if you happen to submit a payment or made a payment on August the 10th, I would suggest just waiting a couple of business days to make sure that the payment is reflected. And then once it's reflected, your status will be switched over to registered. So then in that case, you wouldn't need to submit that proof of payment. So it's only when you made a payment between August the 13th and 25, then you would need to submit that proof of payment. Now, for students who are going to be deferring based on their OSAP application or their provincial aid, the deadline to submit that fee deferral on Acorn is August the 25th. And I'm focusing mostly on fall-winter terms for these dates because those are the ones that are coming, that will be coming first. And so for the winter term, for those who are just coming for the winter term, those would be the dates listed here. Now, the financially canceled date is August the 26th. So if by that date you do not have a registered status, you will be removed from your courses on Acorn. So do your best to try and get yourself a registered status by that time, because once you are removed from courses, to get back into them, sometimes there might not be room left in the courses, or sometimes you might be put on a waiting list. So do your best to try and get the registered status before August the 26th. Now, after you've deferred your fees and you have registered, so what happens with the payment deadlines? So the first set we will look at is for the students with the fee deferral. So in this case, if you've deferred your fees, you will have up until September 30th to pay the remaining fall term fees to avoid service charges. So the service charges will begin on October the 15th for any remaining outstanding fall term balances. The deadline to pay winter fees to avoid service charges is January 31st, 2026 in the new year. So this is for the remaining winter term fees. The monthly service charges will be applied for all outstanding fall winter fees beginning on February 15th, 2026. Now, the absolute deadline to pay outstanding fees, if you do not wish to have a hold on your Acorn account, is April 30th, 2026. Now, for students who had deferred their fees based on a scholarship that they will be receiving, the deadline to pay your fall winter fees to avoid service charges is April 30th, 2026. And the monthly service charges on any outstanding fees from the fall term balance is going to be May 15th, 2026. And the absolute deadline to pay for your fees for the fall winter session coming up, if you wish to avoid the financial hold, is April 30th, 2026. Now, for students who are registering through a payment, if you're going to be paying through the minimum payment with no fee deferral, your deadline to pay fall term fees in full to avoid service charges is September 30th, 2025. The monthly service charge will begin on October 15th for any outstanding fall term fees. The deadline to pay for your winter term fees, please note, is November 28th, 2025. And again, this is for students who registered through their minimum payment, so with no fee deferral. So your winter term fees will be due November 28th, 2025, and the first service charge will be applied on the 15th of December, 2025. And the deadline to pay for your outstanding fall winter fees for this upcoming school year is April 30th, 2026. Now, financial planning and resources. Let's look at that. Now, for students, domestic Ontario residents, you can apply for OSAP, which is the Ontario Student Assistance Program. This will provide financial assistance for those domestic students who are Ontario residents in the forms of loans, grants. You can apply directly on the OSAP website, and it will give you information about eligibility as well as how to apply. For information about out-of-province student assistance, you can look at the link from the registrar's office for more information about student aid for your particular province. Now, U of T entrance scholarships. So there are many opportunities available for incoming students. Please review the UTM community entrance scholarships that require an application for this particular one. For those applying directly from high school or applying directly for the first time to the University of Toronto, you will be automatically considered for any entrance scholarships. So with your offer of admission, if you will be receiving scholarships, those will be listed in your offer of admission letter. Now, also available, we have the in-course scholarships, which require an application. These are for the in-course scholarships. We have the U of T UTM, specific to UTM students. We have the UTM scholarships. Also for the tri-campus in-course scholarships, the link is there. Again, University of Toronto has 3 campuses, and so the link here will provide you with in-course scholarships available to all students across the 3 campuses. As well, there's the Award Explorer that you can have a look at, and you can actually filter in on the Award Explorer. You can select whether you're an international student or domestic students to look at the various scholarships that are available to you based on the criteria. Now, for domestic students, there's also the couple of grants and bursaries that are available. These are the non-repayable grants, and it's based on financial need, and you may be eligible for each year. So the UTM grant, you can apply directly under the UTM undergraduate grant, and you can apply starting September the 2nd. The application period opens on that date. Now for UTAPS, this is already available, so you can go ahead and apply as soon as possible. And the UTAPS is open to domestic students across, U of T students across all 3 campuses. So you can look at the website to look at the eligibility as well as with the deadlines. Now for students who have a registered education savings plan, the parents or family members may have started those when they were young. You will need to contact your RESP company to determine the requirements and the deadlines. For many of the companies, or if you'd have an RESP with the bank, a confirmation of enrollment letter can be downloaded on Acorn under the transcripts and enrollment confirmation section. Again, it's best that you contact your RESP company to determine exactly what it is that you need for you to withdraw those funds for school. Now, the UTM Career Center, it offers many services and resources. You can connect with them about topics such as resume writing, interview skills, summer or during the school, job searches, and as well as the work-study program that's on-campus jobs. So they have a lot of information on their website, so do have a look at it when you have a chance. Now, there are also a few links here that we've provided to learn more about financial literacy. So with the Government of Canada website, you can actually go in there and just have a look at the website, because it will give you some tools to choose a bank account, to choose a credit card, because some of you can, maybe you've started a bank account with your parents, but you can actually perhaps even have your bank account as a student now on your own. So have a look at the financial literacy website that is available from the Government of Canada website. They have many, many tools that will help you plan your finances. And also as well, the University of Toronto has their website from the Student Life main page, looking at the living costs in Toronto or in the GTA. Now, we are always available to answer your questions if you have any along the way. There's the Ask Registrar ticket system that's available, and as well there's a telephone number that you can reach us. And now, very important regarding the ticket system, it is available to students 24 hours, 7 days a week. So it's, if you happen to have a question and you want to ask, feel free to use that and to connect with us, because we can help you right away when we return to the office. Even if you send it in on the weekend, when we return to the office, we'll be able to help you with those questions. So it's a very good platform to use. And again, there's a telephone number that you can use to contact us. You can also check our website for the hours that the telephone line is available. But again, I would recommend using Ask Registrar, as that would be the most efficient way to reach us. So thank you for joining us. We will have time now for questions, so do post them in the chat, and we will be able to go through those. Thank you. Okay, we have a question from Benny. Can you only opt out of one plan, like only out of dental and not health? I believe you actually need to, if you do opt out, you will need to opt out for both dental and health. So I would, to confirm, I would reach out to the student union at UTM or check out their website to confirm that. From my understanding, you do need to, if you opt out, it would be both for dental and health. So please do reach out to the student union to double check that. So Amber has a question for us. Does the OSAP loan also need to be at least 50% of my tuition in order for me to defer my tuition, or is that only for scholarships? So in terms of what I had mentioned earlier, deferring by scholarships, that is specific for the scholarship. So your scholarship needs to be enough to cover the minimum payment to register. In terms of the OSAP, if you've already applied and you are going to be receiving funding, you can go ahead and submit that fee deferral. So it does not need to be that 50% requirement of your tuition. So just make sure that you've applied and you just wasn't just today that you applied for OSAP. So you do have to wait about 2 to 3 business days before you can submit the fee deferral. And Amber, if you are a newly admitted student, so I wouldn't think you have any fees outstanding from the previous session, because sometimes for students who has fees outstanding from, say, the summer term or the fall winter session, they wouldn't be able to submit the fee deferral. So if a student is in that situation, please do connect with us through Ask Registrar and we can help you out. Another question so my OSAP might be in later than August 26th. I did defer my fees and my status is registered. So when is the last day to make the minimum payment for me as I applied for OSAP? So I mentioned that that minimum payment to register on your ACORN invoice. If you already have submitted your fee deferral and your status is registered, that minimum payment amount should disappear from your invoice. So you actually are already registered. So you actually don't need to make that minimum payment right now because your status is already registered. However, once your OSAP comes in after the first installment, I would suggest that you check your invoice in mid-September. And if there's any outstanding fees from the fall term, you should pay those by September 30th. Can we change our courses or schedule after paying the tuition? Yes. So there, under the fall registration guide with the important dates, you'll be able to see when it's the last day to add courses or drop courses. So be very, to all our students, it's very important that you're mindful of those important dates as you are switching in and out of courses. Right now, it's still good because school hasn't started yet. So you can still change your course load. But after school starts, when classes start, there are deadlines that you should be mindful of when you can drop a course, because you want to make sure if you don't want a course, you want to drop it so that it doesn't appear on your invoice, because you don't want to be paying a course that you don't want to take. So be very mindful of those deadlines. Sometimes there's a 100% refund deadline that you're able to get all the course refund. But there's also the 50% course deadline. So you'll be charged 50% of the course if you don't drop the course by a certain deadline. So again, I'm going to reiterate, be very, very mindful of those drop deadlines and those important dates. It's in the banner there on our site. So it's a good idea to know what those deadlines are.
Also to add to that, in terms of changing your course load, it's also very important for students to notify OSAP of course load changes, because OSAP is not automatically made aware of course load changes because they're not linked into the university's enrollment system. So for you to make sure you get the proper assessment, you need to tell OSAP if you've added, particularly if you added a course. because OSAP would have only funded you for the original course load you were in. Or if you drop courses, and sometimes you might drop courses without full refunds, make sure you also tell OSAP of that, because they would not be aware of that, because they typically ignore drop courses and they won't give you funding consideration for a drop course after the fact. So very important for students to update their application whenever anything changes, financial, academic, personal.
Okay, thank you, Francis. I also wanted to add to that note. So for those for students who are going to be receiving OSAP, please keep in mind that to try and stay full-time in each term. So when you apply for OSAP, full-time OSAP, you're required to stay in at least 1.5 credits per term for each term that you receive funding. So it's very important to maintain that course load. For students who have a approved permanent disability or a persistent prolonged disability, your requirement is 1.0 credit per term. So very, very important. Do connect with us if you have questions about, if before you drop the course, please do connect with us at the financial aid office to just make sure that you are still maintaining that full-time status and not have your OSAP impacted. Very, very important.
Yeah, one additional point that we should also emphasize is the fact that the university does remit the first installment of your funding from your OSAP when it's issued. So if you process a fee deferral because you've applied for OSAP, please do not make a payment or the minimum required payment. Please wait until you see the amount that's coming from your OSAP loan reflected on your Acorn invoice before you make any further payments.
Thank you, Bridget. Okay, Marta asked, what should we do if, even though you've met your conditions for your scholarship and it's included in your offer, there's nothing in the Acorn award section? Will it show up later? Yes, it will show up later if you've already received in your offer of admission in the letter that you will be receiving a scholarship. Then you will just need to give it some time to get posted. And so again, if that scholarship is enough to cover the minimum payment, go ahead and submit that fee deferral based on that scholarship. So it is still very early, so don't worry, it will be posted if you've already been confirmed in your letter of offer.
Scholarship payments will be reflected on the invoice likely after the last day to add courses, which is September the 15th. So you can check towards the end of September. You should be able to see that information on your invoice.
Okay, Camille's asking that. So you pay for fall winter fees separately. You do not have to pay your whole tuition all at once. That's correct. So at UTM, it's the fall winter session is split into fall winter. And so as I mentioned, the first deadline was September 30th was the deadline that you should pay all of your the fall term fees. And now in terms of the winter fees, depending if you've applied, if you've submitted fee deferral or you paid by you registered by making a payment, your deadline for winter is slightly different. So yeah, you don't have to pay all of it, but if you are able to pay all of it, that's fine as well. But if you don't have to pay all of it at once. Right now, we're main focus is to try and get you to make that minimum payment to registered, and then any remaining fees, fall term fees, by September 30th, and then you work with the other deadlines as you progress in the school year.
One additional reminder for students that are receiving scholarships, please ensure that you update your direct deposit information in Acorn. That is your banking information, as well as your address information, because this will help for your scholarship award to be processed more efficiently.
I applied for OSAP and they said that my fee won't be released until UTM confirms my enrollment. When will UTM confirm my enrollment to OSAP? I've uploaded necessary documents. So in terms of the confirmation of enrollment. So that will be done. The university will confirm your enrollment closer to the end of August, just before the start of classes. And so, as I mentioned before, if you've already applied for OSAP, go ahead and submit that fee deferral on Acorn. If you are successful, then your status will switch over to registered. And again, I would also, because you've uploaded your documents, I don't know the status of it right now because it's a general chat here, but I would just advise all students who apply for OSAP to always monitor their OSAP messages. Because those documents that you've submitted, once it's reviewed, if additional information is needed or from you, OSAP will write you a message. So it's very important for you to monitor your OSAP messages throughout the school year, especially right now as you are waiting for the documents to be approved, to always monitor your messages. And again, if you've already applied for OSAP, go ahead and submit that fee deferral. The first installment, if everything is in order on your OSAP application, the first installment should be released just closer to the start of classes of September the 2nd.
Sorry, was muted there. Just wanted to add a note about communications with OSAP right now, because there's uncertainty with Canada Post going on right now, because they might strike, they might not strike. There is an option in your profile to ask for communications be sent to you electronically or by physical mail. I might suggest all students change that option to, and actually they should probably leave it permanently to electronic mail right now, because if they are sending physical mail, it might be caught up by the postal strike and you may not get these communications. And OSAP are very important. So I would always recommend a student leave it as online electronic messaging, which you can access through the OSAP message center that is on your OSAP file when you log in. And you can always access those messages basically permanently. So that's why it's a much easier system, and it's a much quicker way for you to get communications from OSAP. So you can learn of any extra requirements OSAP might need, or they have a comment about documentation you have submitted. And that's where you get that communication from.
Very good point, Francis. Thank you. So next question, when do you get UTAPs? How does it work? And do you get the expected amount if you meet the conditions, or does it change? So UTAPs is now, the application is open. So for domestic students, you could go ahead and go into the UTAPs website and have a look at the eligibility as well as the application deadlines. So UTAPs is available. It's actually, the acronym is University of Toronto Advanced Planning for Students Program. It is a program that's offered by University of Toronto to fill in the gap that perhaps your OSAP or your financial aid program with your province, is to fill in any gaps that those programs might not have met. And so students do have to apply. And in terms of how it works, it's based on need, right? So you are going to submit all the financial information that it asks, and then it will be assessed to see if you indeed have a financial need. Now, in terms of the amount, that will be, I know for some students, if they've applied already, they may have received a notification about the guaranteed amount. And so I believe that amount will be confirmed to you. Bridget, if you want to add in about the minimum guaranteed amount for newly admitted students.
Yeah, the guaranteed amount for newly admitted students, it is guaranteed to the student as long as they remain in the same program that they were offered, as well as there are additional conditions that you also need to meet that are stipulated on the website. I'm just going to get Colleen to perhaps put up that screen just so that you can read through it to see, to make sure that you understand what needs to be met in order to get the guaranteed amount.
Okay, so I'm looking in terms of how you're going to get, when you get your UTAPs. So if you are assessed to receive UTAPs, the recommended deadline is to apply by September the 16th, 2025. So if you qualify for UTAPs, your first payment will be issued by early October 2025. So all that information is on the website, very useful information. Now, in terms of the absolute deadline, when you need to apply for, when you can apply for UTAPs, based on the website, you can apply. The deadline, the absolute deadline is February 19th, 2026. So that is the latest day you can apply for UTAPs. Okay, Benny has a question. If our scholarship pays the full fees, we don't have to pay the service charges, right? Does U of T do the scholarship transaction, or do we have to pay when we receive the scholarship in our bank account? Based on my understanding, the way that the scholarship is issued, if you have, by the time that the scholarship is about to be dispersed, we will always look at your ACORN balance. If you have outstanding fees on ACORN balance, your scholarship will be used to apply to reduce or pay off your ACORN balance. So again, if you do defer by a scholarship, your service charge, I believe, will not be incurred until May 15th of next year. So students deferring by scholarship will have up until April 30th to pay for the fees. So you wouldn't need to be concerned about the service charge until May 15th.
But you've got to make sure you do submit the scholarship deferral.
Yes.
Just having the
correct.
scholarship itself doesn't absolve your service charges. You must make sure you get that scholarship deferral.
Correct. Thanks, Francis. Daniel says, I received an entrance award. Congratulations. Do I have to mention that in my OSAP application? Absolutely, yes. So when you apply, it will ask you if you will be receiving a scholarship or any awards, or you would put that in. Because it will impact your OSAP assessment. So please do include that in your OSAP application. And if you already submitted your OSAP application and you need to make an update, you can upload a letter, a signed letter to your OSAP account to inform OSAP that you are receiving that entrance award and you had forgotten to put that in. So that a signed letter would be sufficient.
Just one additional note about scholarships. So all merit-based awards, so more awards based on grades. If you did really well or you received a community-based scholarship, regardless of your year of study, that needs to be included on your OSAP. Need-based awards do not need to be reported. So meaning if it was based on financial need.
Thank you, Bridget. Nor has a question. So can I defer pay my fees even if I have a tutorial I still haven't enrolled in because it's full or blocked? Wouldn't that amount in my invoice change if I add this tutorial? If you're already enrolled in the course, that itself should be reflected in your ACORN invoice already. And so if you check, now deferring will not be affected by whether you are in that tutorial. So whether you're able to defer is dependent on whether you have a scholarship coming, or you've applied for OSAP, or you've applied for financial aid with your province. So it has nothing to do with that tutorial. So as I would go ahead and just double check your invoice to see if that course is already on your that course is already on your invoice. And so go ahead and submit the fee deferral if you've already applied for financial aid through your province or through OSAP. Do we get awarded our entire UTM scholarship at the same time in October, or will it be in 2 installments? From my understanding, for the entrance scholarships, for those that are, I believe, the UTM entrance scholarships, that's about, I believe it's under $3,000. Those are just one, it would be just one installment. Now for the bigger scholarship, the international scholarship, I believe those ones are in 2 separate installments. So it would depend on which particular scholarship you received. If it's just the entrance scholarship, that's $3,000, then those would be paid out in one installment. So when we were talking about the deadline to register for fee deferral students, it is August 25th to get the money, or is it just to decide whether you're deferring or not? So let's have a look at the deadlines again. So I'm just going to pull up the fall winter registration guide. So the fee deferral deadline those students who are eligible for fee deferral, the deadline is August the 25th. Let me just quickly pull this up. Colleen, if I lost the question, Colleen, if you can post the question again.
While you're pulling that up, Jennifer, just wanted to clarify that a fee deferral allows you to register without payment. So it's either or. So it's paying either your minimum amount displayed on your invoice, or if you don't have the funds to pay the minimum amount and you've applied for OSAP or other provincial aid, then you can opt to say, can I register without payment? So meaning processing a fee deferral in Acorn if you're eligible, and that puts off the payment, right, until all other deadlines apply, but allows you to register without actually making that minimum that's displayed on your invoice. So you have to do that by August the 25th. If you don't do that, either make the minimum payment or defer, you will be removed from any courses that you've selected on August the 26th. So it's an important step that you need to take in order to complete your registration.
Yeah, so it's either or. So if you defer, you don't need to make that minimum payment to register, because once you've successfully deferred, your status will be switched over to registered. So you no longer need to register again because you're already registered. So it's either or. Make the minimum payment or defer your fees to registered. And again, August the 25th. Please do that. Do it by that date.
And an important note about registering by payment. So the 25th is not the deadline for you to actually initiate your payment. It's the deadline for the university to receive your payment. So that's why you might notice on our website, we suggest students pay by August 11th to allow them up to 2 weeks for the payment transaction to come through. So it is the deadline for us to receive your money. So don't pay on 25th and say, oh, I'm going to be registered tomorrow, because we actually won't receive your money, because it takes time for the banks to complete your payment transfer. So make sure if you are choosing to register by payment, to pay much earlier to allow enough time for the bank transaction to get through. Or if you're paying from overseas, that process might take 2 weeks. If you're banking from a credit union, could take 2 weeks. If you're paying by the bank in Canada, usually takes about 5 days, 3 business days, but you have to account for weekends, because no transactions are processed over weekends. So make sure, you pay early enough so that the money reaches UFT by the 25th, by that deadline. Or if you defer, you do have up until 25th to use the OSAP fee deferral. Or same thing with the scholarship deferral. Allow a few extra days in advance to submit your request for that, so we can process it in time.
So does U of T first pay my fees using the scholarship I was awarded and give me the remaining money if it was more than the full fees, or do I pay when I receive it? So again, when the scholarship is dispersed, it will look at what your outstanding balance is on Acorn, and it would be used to pay that. If it's more than enough to pay for your fees, then the remaining money will be sent to you directly. When is the deadline to pay residence fee? Can you pay them when you get UTABs? So if you're going to be staying on residence, your entire invoice would include, your Acorn invoice will include your courses, your incidental fees, as well as your the residence fees. And so what it does, again, we're looking at that all of your fall term fees would include residence fees, course fees, and all the incidentals. So it's separated into, when you look at your invoice, into two separate sections. So the deadline, again, if you've deferred fees or you've submitted a payment, minimum payment registered, the September 30th is the deadline. You should pay any remaining fees for the fall term. So again, your invoice on Acorn will be split up between fall and winter fees. So your residence fees for the fall would be part of the fall section. So you have to be mindful that September 30th, you need to pay off all of that fall term fees to avoid the service charge. So that is also the deadline, September 30th, for your residence fees for the fall portion. Now, can you pay them with your UTAPs? Well, UTAPs, I believe what we had looked at earlier, if you're entitled, if you are going to be receiving UTAPs, the first payment will be issued in early October. So if you're waiting to use that to pay for your fall fees, you're not going to be able to make it in time, because the first service charge will be applied on any outstanding fall term fees on October 15th. So the timing is going to be very tight. So I would not suggest that you wait for the UTAPs to come in, because you might miss the deadline to avoid the service charge.
And also, just a note about residence fees, so you can do some financial planning in advance. It's usually the case that residence fees are charged unbalanced fall and winter. The majority of your residence fees will usually appear in the fall term fee charges, and then the remainder in the winter. So something like if it's $18,000, usually we see the fall portion of the resident fees somewhere around $10,000, maybe $12,000, and the rest of it in the winter term. So it is unbalanced that way, more of it up front. So be aware of that when you do your financial planning.
Rose is asking, I did all the application for OSAP, deferred my fees. Will UTM receive the fees automatically from OSAP once it is released, or should I do something specifically? So as Bridget had mentioned earlier, if you are going to be receiving OSAP, please do wait until the first installment has come in. And then I would suggest checking your invoice in mid-September, your Acorn invoice, to see if there's any outstanding fall term fees, and pay those off by September 30th. So just wait until the OSAP funding comes in, and then go ahead, proceed with that if you still need to make a payment, because we want to avoid any double payments, right? With you paying and then with OSAP paying, and then, yeah, it gets a little bit more complicated. So I would suggest just wait until the OSAP funding comes in before you make any payments, if it's needed.
Just to add to that, so the university is going to confirm your enrollment, which is the process that allows your OSAP funding to be issued, and that will occur in late August or early September if your application is complete. So there isn't anything that you need to do other than ensure that you're in the minimum required course load, which is 1.5 credits in each of the fall and winter term, or students with a documented disability on their OSAP, 1.0 credits in each of the fall and winter term. So as long as you're registered and you're in that minimum course load, your enrollment will automatically be confirmed, and the first installment of your funding will issue, and your fall term fees will be deducted from that installment.
And also to add to that, for students who want to do a little bit of financial planning to see if the OSAP amount will cover the fall portion of your fees, you may actually view the fall portion of the funding and your winter portion of funding that's scheduled on the OSAP application itself. If you check the status of your application online, you'll find a link that says view your funding. That will actually break down your funding portions term by term. Now, be aware that this funding is based on your current assessment, and your actual funding might change if your actual enrollment differs from your actual from your OSAP assessment. So for example, if you had applied for OSAP and you told them, I'm taking a 100% course load, that would be for 5 credits. But let's say at the time when you enroll in courses, you're on a wait list, or maybe you decide to change your course or reduce it, and you're only taking 3.5 credits overall in the fall winter, OSAP will actually change your assessment after the fact. So be aware of that. So when you do check your funding, check it again once OSAP confirms you, because the funding amount might change. But this is a way for students to do a little bit of financial planning and fun to see if the OSAP funding would cover everything, and whether or not you need to save up some money to make your own payment. Check your OSAP file and view your funding, and then compare it with the fee invoice, the fall portion of your fees, and see if it's adequate.
Thank you, Francis. Bridget? What if I make a payment for minimum on the deadline August 12th? Do I still need to submit proof of payment, or should I just wait 2 to 3 business days? So I would recommend just waiting 2 to 3 business days to see that the payment is reflected. And once that's done, then you should be able to see your registered status. But if absolutely you still do not see registered status, then you can submit that proof of payment just to ensure that you get yourself registered. What is the amount of service charge per month? That's a good question. I believe it's 2.5%. I'm just going to verify that. I don't believe that changed. It's on our the fees website. I'm just going to pull it up just to double check. Because the URO, the University Registrar's Office, has a fees and payments website that talks more about the service charges. So I'm just gonna, I just want to confirm the percentage, but the last time I checked, it was 2.5%. Francis, is that?
No, it's actually 1.5. The 2.5 is the service charge for the Moneris credit card payment.
1.5, that's correct. I apologize. It's 1.5%. I was thinking Moneris, but it is 1.5%. Thank you.
But it's 1.5% compounded. So that might not sound like a lot, but that's a monthly rate. If you prorate it over 12 months to get an annual rate, it equals 19.55%. So it's like a credit card.
That's substantial. Yeah.
It is substantial. So we would try to advise students always to try to make their payments up front, or reduce their amount owing as much as possible to avoid the service charge, because it is pretty heavy. Even to the point, I might suggest students even borrow money from a bank to pay off the URT, because the interest rate you get at a bank would be much lower than the URT service charge. So if you have the wherewithal to access a line of credit, that might be an option for you to reduce the amount of fees you get.
Yeah. So again, the monthly service charge is 1.5%, compounded monthly, and it's annualized. That's about 19.56%. So thank you, Francis. Hey, I want to opt out of health and dental insurance, but from what I researched, the deadline is around September and the fees are included in the minimum amount to register. Will I get the money back? So what happens is if you're successfully opt out of the dental and health, and when your invoice is adjusted, so it would adjust, and the whole invoice would be the amount that's remaining to pay for the rest of the school year would get adjusted. So it's not.
Actually, sorry, Jennifer, that's not the way I understand it. What happens is you have to opt out through the student union, and there's a special program. Oh. And once it gets, if it's approved, they actually will pay you back afterwards. They'll send you money back. But upfront, you do have to pay the fees as they're shown on your invoice, which will include the health and dental plan. And then after they do the separate process to approve an opt-out, they actually will refund you money through that process separately. Okay, but it goes through the student union. There's guides there to guide you through that process. And if you have questions about the process, you also contact them through the student union.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Francis. Once I enrolled in some course, is there any wiggle room to change it later? So between now and, as I mentioned, the important deadlines for students to add and drop courses, between now and then, yes, you can still change up your course load. But just keep in mind, again, there are certain deadlines that you will be be able to get your 100% refund course fee, and then there are deadlines that you will only be getting a 50% of the course fee refund. So please be very mindful of those deadlines. And so between now and school, before school starts, yes, by all means, you can still adjust your classes.
So in that on that website where we have our dates, September 15th is the deadline for you to add a new F course section course or Y section course. Section meaning the first term only in the fall term, and then Y course meaning a full year course that will run from both the fall and winter terms. That's the last day for you to add one of those courses or to change a section in one of those courses. After that, you would not be able to add one of those courses. You can only add on second session with your courses. And also, if you are in a course, an F course or a Y course already, after the 15th, if you drop it after then, there is a residual charge where you don't get a full refund for dropping them after the 15th.
I'm eligible for international fees exemption, but it's not likely that I'm going to receive my study permit before the minimal payment deadline. Do I pay the international price then? So essentially, you would still, depending at the time that you get the study permit, but at this point in time, I would still look at your invoice to see what the minimum payment is. And if it is still reflecting international price, then yes, you would need to pay that amount to register. And so again, that is on your invoice, it will show the amount that you need to pay.
Also, usually if you get successfully get the international fee exemption by providing the documentation, all your fees should be reflected of the domestic fee charges ongoing, even if you don't register initially, because that is part of your status. Now that status actually does expire after a while, so you got to make sure you keep notice of any notices we send to you about the international fee exemption in case we ask you for updated documentation to make sure it's approved again in the future. For now, if you are able to get the international fee exemption and you provide the documentation and it's been approved by our office, whenever you register, your fee should reflect the domestic fee charge because that's part of your file.
Just circling back to the question about the health and dental, just a reminder that there is a deadline in order to do so. Students need to do that before the end of September. So it's important that you pay attention to that deadline, otherwise you won't be able to have that charge removed or refunded rather.
Also, so because Bridget mentioned deadlines for the international fee exemption, the fall deadline is November 1st for that. So make sure you are asking for international fee exemption. You must submit that request by November 1st.
I am planning to submit a fee deferral for minimum payment, but my OSAP may not be accepted soon due to me being out of country. So do I have to pay the minimum payment before 25th myself? So if you've already applied for OSAP and you are assessed to receive funding, then you could go ahead and do the fee deferral now. Like even if you're out of country, if you have access to Acorn, wherever you are, you can still try and defer those fees. But if you decide not to submit the fee deferral, yes, you will need to make the minimum payment. However, like Francis had mentioned, the 25th is the date that the money has to be in your Acorn account. So we would suggest that you try and make that minimum payment by August 11th, August 12th. Okay. But again, if you are planning to apply for OSAP, you should still be able to access the fee deferral on Acorn from the country where you are. If you were to drop a course and get a full refund, can you drop the course on Acorn the deadline day, or do you have to leave some time for processing in order to get the refund? If you know that you're going to drop the course, I would not recommend waiting until that last day, because chances are, if there's something happening with the internet or for connection issues, it might just make that more difficult. So if you know you're going to drop a course that you don't want to keep, I would do it well before the date of that deadline. So not the day of. Don't leave it for that day. When do I check if U of T has paid my outstanding balance using my scholarship? Let me just, Bridget, did you mention that the scholarship would be after the end of the last day to drop and add courses? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So likely towards the end of September, definitely after September the 15th.
Okay, so I would suggest checking your invoice at that point in time to see what your outstanding balance is and get that paid. Now, if you're deferring by scholarship, again, you would not need, your outstanding fees can be paid by April 30th. So if you have a scholarship, a deferral. So will this live still be accessible here on YouTube? So this is recorded, so you would be able to access it with all the questions in the presentation as well, questions and answers as well. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for my team who's helped with answering the questions. And so again, just a reminder to our students, just be mindful of upcoming deadlines for OSAP students, monitor your OSAP messages. And if for some reason your OSAP is delayed, connect with us through Ask Registrar and just so you can get to it right away to see what that delay is and not put it off. So we're available through Ask Registrar to the ticket system. So all the best with your studies. And for those joining us for the first time at UTM, welcome to the campus, and we will see you on campus sometimes. Thank you again, everyone.